Hey everyone, it's Chris, and today, in honor of National Bird Day, we're going to watch a little video called 10 Unique and Strange Birds. We'll see just how unique and strange they are. It comes from a channel called Top 5, but this is a top 10 list, so I guess they're doubling down on this one, so let's give it a watch.
10 very unique and strange birds. Number 10. Ribbon-tailed Astrapia. Ribbon-tailed Astrapias are a type of bird of paradise, and they are by far the most stunning. They're native to the forests of Papua New Guinea.
I have a feeling a lot of the birds on this list are going to be from, the the Pacific Islands or the South American rainforest. Birds of paradise, they're usually quite stunning. This one with its long tail feather, it kind of makes you wonder how they fly with that.
And have the longest tail feathers in relation to their body size of any bird. In some cases, their tails are more than 3 times the length of the rest of their body. The tails are how the males attract their mates, with longer ones usually implying stronger genes to be passed on.
Yeah, like right there, how does that not get caught up on everything? That's I would think that it'd be to the point that's a detriment, but with most animals in nature, you've got the brighter and more colorful to attract mates, and again, this is where that works, I guess.
It doesn't exactly help them in times of trouble, though, and they
Okay,
often have to
so
untangle themselves before they can fly away from danger.
yeah,
Usually,
that's
their bodies grow up to 12 inches tall and are covered in velvety black feathers. They eat mainly fruits, insects, spiders, and frogs, and their calls, which sounds like a wah,
okay. So if it's 12 inches tall and the tail is what, like 3 times, so the tail feather is almost 3 feet long.
a wok, wit wit, can be heard echoing through the jungle canopy. Due to the relatively small region in which they live, there aren't thought to be many ribbon-tailed Astrapias, so, as a result, they're considered to be near threatened and could be at major risk if there are any changes to their habitat. Number 9. Andean Cock of the Rock. With such striking colors and an unusual crest, it's no surprise that the Andean Cock of the Rock has become the national bird of Peru, where it lives. The bright orange-colored plumage reaches across its head and its chest, with gray and black feathers on the tail and wings. The colors are more vivid in the males of the species, but the females still stand out against the environment.
Yeah, that's another thing you'll find is a lot of times it's the males that are a lot brighter and stand out, and that's again for like a from a mating perspective, it's to attract mates, and it's usually it's the males that are looking to attract mates and to perform and to say, hey, pick me.
They live throughout the Andes in Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela, and are usually found in the forests above 1,500 feet, with some occasionally seen lower down near water sources. Andean
I like that little the variation color there from almost a red to that orange color that we just
cock of the
saw.
rocks feed mainly on fruits and insects, and during mating season have an unusual competitive courtship dance that sees a group of males jumping up and down and croaking in an attempt to gain the attention of the females. Due to the wide range of their habitat, they aren't classified as an endangered species, but there remains concern about their popularity in the international wildlife trade, as they are highly sought after throughout the world because of their colorful plumage. Number 8. Kakapo. Kakapos are native to New Zealand where, because of the historic lack of predators, birds evolved to be very different from elsewhere in the world. It was once common throughout the islands, but now the species is at a severe risk because of human activity, and they only remain in small numbers on uninhabited islands. The flightless
Yeah, there are quite a few like flightless birds in that area, and I'm pretty sure that's how like when the dodo went extinct because it was flightless, and then man came along and brought other species, and those species destroyed the dodo's nests and killed the dodos because they weren't built to escape. So I think it was like when they brought like rats and everything came upon, but yeah, we're good. We're a good species for all the others.
Nocturnal birds grow up to 25 inches tall and weigh as much as 9 pounds. They are a type of parrot with a pale face and green mottled feathers that help them to blend into their surroundings. They are completely vegetarian and tend to feed on leaves, bark, roots, and fruits, and are
How can you not love that face?
solitary animals, only meeting up with others when it's time to mate. As of 2017, a total of 154 individuals were known to be living on the islands of Wanuhau, Anchor, and Hauturu.
They're almost extinct.
Breeding programs are underway, but their inability to evade predators that have been introduced to the islands beyond these three mean that it's unlikely they'll ever be able to return to their old habitats.
That's too bad.
Number 7. Shoebill stork.
One of the most terrifying birds there are to behold.
Shoebill storks, so called because of their distinctively shaped bills, are found across the tropical regions of East Africa, in countries such as South Sudan and Uganda. They live in marshy areas where they wade through the water in search of their favorite food, lungfish. They grow up to 5 feet tall and have more than an 8-foot wide wingspan and will often be seen standing motionless.
They're one of those that when you think about dinosaurs having evolved into like birds, you can look at those and say, okay, I see it. I can see it. There's something about them that is very prehistoric in nature and just their appearance. You know, it may just be me, but you get that distinct feeling.
Waiting for their prey to swim past.
Just look at those faces and those eyes. Those are, I don't know. I'm creeped out by birds anyway, but
Despite their name, they aren't actually a type of stork, but are more closely related to pelicans, and this explains why they have such a large shoe-shaped bill. They are quite a vicious species, and were said to have a strong bite by the first zoologists who wrote about them in the 19th century. They also exhibit an unusual behavior called urohydrosis that surprised those that first encountered them. This sees them defecate on their legs as they stand in the water, and this helps them to reduce their own body temperature.
I believe vultures do that as well, and as a way of like cleaning their own legs.
Before we move on, be sure to subscribe to Top 5s with notifications on. Number 6. Vulturine guinea fowl. Vulturine guinea fowls are native to the grasslands and savannas of northeast Africa.
That face, that head, that hairdo, feather do. That's...
countries like Ethiopia,
That is one of the funniest looking birds I've ever seen.
Kenya, and Somalia. They get their names because of their bald head and necks and have red eyes, blue faces, a bright blue breast, and a covering
ugly
of
and yet
black
very
and white
pretty.
striped feathers. Despite being good flyers, they will usually run away from danger instead of spreading their wings. Most of their lives are spent on the ground, using their sharp beaks and claws to dig into the earth to retrieve grubs, insects, and roots to feed on. They usually live together in large flocks and can call out across long distances to communicate with each other. But in times where there's lack of food or no space to roost, things can soon turn ugly and they become quite violent towards each other.
Yeah, that's the case with most animals. Once a lack of food and water and resources comes into play, things get violent. You see that even with, all the way up through to humans. When we have a lack of resources and people are struggling, you're more likely to see violent crime and everything in that nature. So makes sense that it just follows suit in the animal kingdom.
Their chicks will also fight each other for food too, making Vulturine guinea fowls one of the most aggressive interspecies birds that there is. Number 5. Magnificent frigate bird. Magnificent frigate birds are huge seabirds that live
I'm just going to say no comment.
in the tropical coastal regions of the Americas. They grow up to 45 inches tall with a wingspan of up to 8 feet, and the males have an unmissable red gular sac, which they use to attract mates. They feed on fish which they catch by swooping down at the ocean and are often seen catching flying fish from above the surface. They also engage in a behavior called kleptoparasitism, which sees them attack other birds with the intention of making them regurgitate food which they then eat themselves.
What?
Magnificent.
So they attack other birds to make them throw up so they can eat. I'd be like going to, like, say you're in high school and you go to the cafeteria and you walk up and you punch someone in the stomach, make them vomit, and then you lick it up. Yeah, it's sounds pretty disgusting to me.
Frigate birds are one of the very few bird species that can spend many days and nights in constant flight and have been recorded traveling as far as 139 miles before landing. They also use thermal currents in the air to help reach altitudes of up to 8,200 feet, which allows them to travel such vast distances with minimal effort. Number 4. Rufous putu. Rufous putus are a small species of bird found in lowland Amazonia and are very difficult to spot because of their close resemblance to a rotting leaf.
It almost looks like half of an owl, like it's missing its bottom third or something.
Because of this camouflage, very little is actually known about them. They are thought to grow to be up to 10 inches tall with a weight of just 2 ounces.
Oh, they're tiny.
Males and females are both very similar in appearance, and they feed on small insects. To do this, they have very precise movement in flight and often retain the same perch for the majority of their lives, from where they can perfect their hunting technique. Due to the numerous predators in the regions across Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, and Brazil that they live, rufous putus generally only move and feed at nighttime, remaining on their perch during the day when they sleep. Unusually, they are a monogamous species.
Oh, look at those eyes. Look at how tiny its beak is compared to the size of its head and the rest of it too. That's like, if you just look at some of these birds, they, like, obviously these are unique and strange birds, but it's so interesting to see how different species developed, and even ones that are in the same regions. So I don't think I'd ever heard of this bird. So it's interesting, and you gotta look at its feathering and how camouflaged it must really be.
And rather than building a nest, they protect depressions in tree trunks and branches, which is where they lay their eggs. Number 3. Spectacled eider. Spectacled eiders are an unusual species of large sea duck that can be found in the cold waters of Alaska and northern Siberia.
This is another one I hadn't heard of, and it's always interesting just to look at, like look at its head and the design and coloration of the feathers, and there's something, you could almost put something human to that, and makes it rather funny, but
they grow to be around 22 inches long and are identifiable by their black chests, white backs, and very strange facial markings with white spectacle patches around their eyes. They are a diving species and mainly feed on mollusks and crustaceans from the ocean, but move to inland wetland areas during the spring when it's time to breed. Population numbers of this species rapidly declined between the 1970s and 90s, and it's not entirely clear why this happened.
oh, that's a really interesting shot of it, the coloration. Yeah, I mean, a lot of animals have lost their habitats or they've just declined. Being up in Alaska, and I guess this comes down to, most likely, I personally would theorize something to have to do with climate change, just because of it's such a northern species and how the temperature and weather has changed, especially in that time period and then onward to now. So I don't know.
They are now classified as being threatened, and there are now only 3 primary nesting areas in the coastal plains of Alaska, Russia, and the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Efforts are underway to prevent illegal harvesting of them, and to further understand how the ecosystem is changing and affecting their reproduction.
Yeah.
And it's hoped conservation programs will help them to recover. Number 2. Hoatzin. Hoatzins can be found in the swamps of South America, and are thought to be closely related to fossils that have been found from the time of the dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's another one you can look at and just like imagine imagine less feathering to it, and just you can just see it. You can see it. You can see the dinosaur in it.
They feed exclusively on plant material and have a digestive system that causes their food to ferment in a similar way to what happens in cows. They aren't very good at flying and are often seen clumsily trying to move from perch to perch, but they usually stay still most of the time. In an ingenious evolutionary development, their breastbones are perfectly placed to act as a tripod, so the birds are able to keep standing up even when their stomachs are so full that they distend. Hoatzins grow up to 25.
That's interesting. Just little developments like that certain animals have. But it's also interesting that animals that have survived this long and they still have like difficulties getting around, and it makes you wonder how very specific their evolution was to the region that they live in order to survive it. And then of course that shows just how much just the tiniest impact we can have on an ecosystem.
0.6 inches long and weigh less than 2.2 pounds. They have blue faces, red eyes, and a head crest, and are excellent swimmers. Their nests are usually built above water, and if predators such as teras or capuchin monkeys manage to reach them, the birds and their young simply fall into the water, swim to the bank, and wait until the threat is gone before climbing back up to the nest. Number 1. Long-wattled umbrella bird.
What?
Across the Pacific slope of the Andes between Colombia and southern Ecuador, you might just have the chance of seeing one of these strange birds.
Okay, just looking at this one, how does it fly? How does it get around? I mean, how did they survive? It's pretty. It's gorgeous, but
The long-wattled umbrella bird. Apart from having an impressive quiff-like crest on their head,
okay. So, yeah, that's comedic, and yet we see these hairdos and other styles here in the human species as well.
heads, they also have a huge chest wattle. It's so big, in fact, that it gets in the way of them flying.
Okay.
So they've
that's what I
developed the ability to retract it at will. This also has become a
well,
crucial
show
part of
us.
their mating behavior too, and groups of males perform leks, which show off their wattles and their ability to retract and extend them in an attempt to prove their worth to the females. They are a highly prized catch for
That is wild. That is pretty wild.
hunters, which, along with threats from habitat destruction and predators in the region, means they are considered to be a vulnerable species and one that could become endangered.
Okay, but even here, like they let out their waddle and retract, but it's still, how do they get around with it being just
Soon, if things keep
fascinating.
going as they are. Subscribe to Top.
All right, so that was 10 unique and strange birds. I have to agree. They were all very unique and somewhat strange. Some of them were they're beautiful creatures. Some of them are frightening, like the shoebill. Let me know which one was your favorite. If you have others that you think should be on this list, drop it in the comments. If you like the video, hit like and subscribe and ring the little bell for notifications. And thank you for watching, and keep on hanging on.